Brent left. He stormed off. He just tell us about just leaving because it was just one day. You're not there anymore.
But there was a lot of back and forth, and then we worked out an amicable deal where we can all shake hands and walk away friends. But I left, and here's the thing: is lots of people say, "Oh, he was fired." I wouldn't be able to legally say that I was not fired if I was fired.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Here's the Pitch, sponsored by Masses Restaurants in St. Louis, 5 locations. We talk about them all the time. Go to stlmasses.com. Brent Hatley is joining me today, and Brent, of course, from Bubba the Love Sponge fame and the Howard Stern Show. Now he is on his own doing a Twitch show, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you, Brent. Thank you for joining me. What are you going to put in your green screen? Do I have to green screen something behind you? I'm not sure what to do here.
No. I just use this the production office back here. No need for the green screen today. It's just a nice green background so you can see me.
So what did they hire you to do? Did they say the job was? Go ahead, take a drink. I'll keep talking, and I can. Let's talk about the job that you took at the Sirius with Howard. There you go. You took a drink.
So I was a senior producer. So when I first got there, my main thing was I had to oversee the shows that were on 101, and then start transitioning towards also producing a wrap-up show. So I worked with Riley, I worked with Jay Thomas. It was fantastic, and RIP to both of those gentlemen. They were both really fun to work with. And I set up when Jay Thomas would do a crossover with Riley, to hand the show off to him, and it was radio gold. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And Jay Thomas he was a master at making people feel uncomfortable on the air. And I love that. And then in the start of 2015, I started producing the wrap-up show, working with John and Gary, who are just two incredibly nice human beings. I love those guys. And we had a great time with the wrap-up show. And then I morphed into one of the senior producers on the show and one of the on-air talent on the show, because they kind of find people with interesting, weird, quirky personalities and lives, and that Howard can kind of dissect and pick through. So they were like, we definitely need to get you in there on the air so we can go through your insanity.
They were going through some major changes, too, from what I remember, because Howard had his address around 2013 to the whole staff, and we need to change things, and then Marci comes in. Did those guys tell you, wow, this is really different here? I mean, things are different, or did they how did it seem? How did the atmosphere seem to you?
Well, because I was there before and they're there. It was two totally different things. Now it's much more with everybody that came in now. It's much more structured and much more. There's a very definite, solid structure to it. Which with an organization that big, you kind of have to do that. You can't let things get out of control. So there's a definite, solid structure to things, and with that comes a little bit more red tape of getting your stuff on the air. But I understand. Like, you've got to the amount of stuff that's getting pitched to Howard. It's got to be cut down to a manageable amount that he actually gets to look at. So it's more structured. Last time it was a free for all, and there's that came through on the air too. Like, there's things to be said for a free for all, but I understand in an organization that large, it has to be brought under control, and it really was under control. And they do have good systems in place there, and they do run a tight ship, and they do run a good organization. However, amidst all the criticism that they get, like it's no easy task. You're the principal basically at a kindergarten, because all of us were very immature thinking. Got Sal, Richard, me, JD, Shuli. I mean, that group alone. Then you start throwing in Jason and Will and Gary. Like, I mean, could you have a group of more immature guys? Like, Gary is like the most mature one of all of us, and controlling us, which we needed to be controlled at times, is not easy. So I would not want that job, but they have done a good job of putting a structure in there and running a tight ship.
That's what I was going to say, too, because there was a point there where I was sort of in and out, and then there's a Mehmet who shows up, and a Nowicki, and Chris Wilde, all these people that I'd never heard of, and I'm like, where are they coming from, and why is he bringing them all in? What did you think of all this new, or was it, I need younger, new talent? I've got Will, I got Jason, they've been with me for 20 years, but I want some newer, fresher voices.
Well, I don't think it was that. I think it was, Mehmet is an interesting guy to begin with. So, like, he's interesting to talk to off the air, but on the air, he's even more interesting to talk to. And I like the fact that he will let his, neuroses, come through the mic. Nowicki is just a talented performer, kind of an interesting guy. Like, he can build guitars and set models. And, he's just an interesting, very, very talented guy. And Chris Wilding's one of those other people like me that's completely insane. So they kind of pick the people out in the office that are somewhat on some level interesting or quirky or insane, and that's what Howard can really break down. There's a ton of people that work there that are perfectly normal, middle of the road people, but that's not the ones that you hear on the air. You hear the insane people on the air because that's what's interesting. Like, you don't want to hear the guy that's sitting next to you in the cubicle at Barclays or at the guy that's working with you at Home Depot. That's not what you're looking to hear. You're looking to hear people that are really out of their minds, and I think that's what they look for.
Tell me some of your favorite bits that you pitched, or was it just, hey, this weekend I'm going to be swinging, come join me? Or tell me, is that?
Yes. So what I kind of did was my wife and I would go out and do stuff, and we kind of put together the notes on Sunday. We'd sit up on the roof of our apartment building and kind of smoke, and then put together the notes on Sunday, and I would email them to Jason and say, and he would always, I'd always tell him, like, hey, if you want this story, I'm glad to come in and tell it. If not, no big deal. So and they would, it would go into the stack that they present Howard, and he would call you in if it was an interesting story. It was basically that. I loved, as acrimonious as it was, I loved the back and forth with Shuli and I, and people think I hate Shuli. I really don't. He's like a brother. Shuli and I worked together fucking 24/7, it seemed like. From the moment we got to the building to the moment we left, Shuli and I worked together a lot. So we were kind of like brothers. We would fight like that on the air. So I love Shuli. I don't dislike him, but I did like what he did for this reason. It's because a lot of people out there have misperceptions like Shuli does. And he was representing a portion of the audience that just has this complete misperception of what swinging is or what the lifestyle is. Most people, if you're not in it, you really don't know or have any idea what's going on. And a lot of people have those misperceptions. And I was glad Shuli and Howard kind of filled that void for the audience so they could take that position.
And then again, when you left there was all this. I mean, I read it and I heard Brent left. He stormed off. Tell us about just leaving, because it was just one day. You're not there anymore. Howard doesn't even really mention it. Tell us a little bit about that week where you actually have to tell them, and you're telling me it was fine. I had an idea, but tell us a little bit about that ending.
Yeah. So as much as I can tell you, here's what I can tell you. I just went to the powers that be and said, this is what I'm thinking. And then, like I said, I can't really get into detail, but there was a lot of back and forth, and then and we worked out an amicable deal where we can all shake hands and walk away friends. But I left. And here's the thing, is lots of people say, oh, he was fired. I wouldn't be able to legally say that I was not fired if I was fired. I'd legally, if you know anything about corporate exit agreements, it would cost me a shit ton of money if I was fired and I went out there and said I wasn't fired. It just would. It was just, I wasn't. I have no ill will towards SiriusXM. They have no ill will towards me. Same with the Stern Show. I just wanted out of New York. I wanted out of the cold. I wanted to do my own thing, and I wanted to move back into the tropics. So I'm only going to live one of three places the rest of my life, either the Tampa Bay area, New Orleans, or out in the Venice Beach, Santa Monica area of California. That's it. Those are the only three places I'm really interested in living. So I wanted to get back here, and I wanted to do my thing, and coronavirus played a small role into it. I'd say 10 to 15%. That pushed me over the edge. I was like, this is getting ready to get real bad in New York. I told my wife, real bad. So once I signed my exit agreement in mid-March, we weren't going to move to the end of March. We moved it up 2.5 weeks and said, we're getting out of New York area right now. So we packed everything up and we hauled ass down here. And luckily enough, I had a friend that could let me stay with him until I got an apartment let me stay with him for about a month and a half till I got this beautiful apartment for, it's a third of what I was paying in Jersey City. So in Jersey City, I had a 600 square foot apartment. Here, I've got over 1,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, huge, in the sweetest part of St. Pete. And it's the rent's almost nothing. We got used to paying New York prices. I'm like, this really? That's what you want for this apartment? Where do I sign the lease and how long can I sign for? So I'm just much happier now.
Yeah, my goal is to be a neighbor of yours, at least in the winter, and that's what my wife and I are trying to live vicariously through you as we I don't know if we'll be coming over.
St. Pete, Brad.
Yeah.
St. Pete. That's where you want to be.
we like the West Palm Jupiter area, kind of. That's where the Cardinals have spring training. Yeah, it's beautiful over there. It's a little more expensive, but we'll figure out a way. I'm amazed. I was looking at that because I think March 11th may have been your last day, and I'm fairly certain March 13th was the day the NBA shut down. So I mean, that is crazy that it happened like that because we were going, me and my wife and my stepson were going to Disney World that next week, and she's like, I don't know if it's. She's like, they're going to close it, and we're like, everyone's like, they're not closing Disney World. It's like they don't close Florida, Clark, and they son of a bitch closed goddamn Disney World. So she knew about it before then. Do you get a chance? You made it sound like you don't even really want to talk to Howard, even when you're trying to do work. So I'm assuming there's been no contact with him since, right? Or has there?
When I left, there was contact with him, and it could not have been nicer. I wish I could get on here and read you the note that he sent me and the note that I sent him. Like, as a human being, he's a sweet human being. I love him and Beth as people. They are great people. And he sent me a beautiful note when I left. And I'm just not gonna bug the guy, obviously. But I do keep in contact with almost everybody there. Just because they're friends. They've been friends of mine since 04, 05. So it's been a lot of years that I've known these people. So. And in the business, it's a small business, and once Howard retires or they trickle out and leave and go do some other stuff, who knows who might work together or who will be on whose shows. So I just try to stay in contact with everybody.
Yeah. So with Bubba, you weren't obviously up at Sirius that much. And then you joined in 2014, so you didn't really get to be around Artie Lange a lot. But I always love to ask anybody who was around Artie Lange, do you have a good Artie Lange story? He did come to Bubba's wedding. It became a huge, great story for both shows, I'm assuming. And he would call in, too, every once in a while. Did you get to know Artie real well?
Yeah, I did, actually. And even when I was leaving Bubba's show, he was one of the people that I talked to on the phone. And he kind of was like, Brent, you're going to be fine. You're going to be great. Everything's awesome. So I love Artie. Artie is one of my favorite people in the world. Like, the guy is a sweetheart, and he's got a huge heart. And I feel for him for any of the pain that he's in. And I've told him personally up at Sirius when I've seen him up there, even with any of the bullshit he was going through with some of the people from the show not liking him, I just pulled him aside and said, hey, man, if you ever need anything, just give me – and I just texted him this the other day. If you ever need anything, support, or even somebody to talk to as a friend, just give me a call, because he was there for me when I needed somebody too. So but the funny story is at Bubba's wedding, Artie had money on the Saints. The Saints were playing the Eagles in the playoffs. Artie had money on the Saints, and we're both looking at our BlackBerries at that time to get scores. So I'm like, Artie, there's a sports bar like right across the street. We can go hang right over there. And he's like, okay, let's go. So Artie and I go over there. I get me a big, huge, tall whiskey sour, and I'm sitting there with Artie, who's stressing about money. Like, it's right on the edge of the Saints covering or not. And then I turn around, and there's everybody behind me, Tim Sabian and Gary, and like Scott Farrell. Everybody has come across the street and is with Artie and I partying. So later on that night, after everything's over and Artie lost money, he goes, hey, man, I'm still glad. I'm glad because I'm a Saints fan. He's like, I'm glad your team won, even though I lost money. And I was like, hey, we're getting ready to go take some coke and go hang out with strippers. You want to come with us? And he was like, Brent, if I started doing coke, we'd wind up in St. Louis by the end of the night. I was like, okay, understood. I just wanted to be hospitable. So he turned down that, but a group of us did go out with the strippers and the coke that night.
Good for you. You did say you texted him. I know he's coming out of hiding a little bit. Have you talked to him or had any conversations with him via text in the last couple months?
No, I texted him the other day. I've got 2 numbers for him. I texted him to both of them just to tell him I hope he's doing well and if he needs anything. I haven't heard back from him, but I just wanted to reach out and let him know, man, I'm here for you if you need me, brother. And I love Artie. He's one of the most talented people that I've ever heard on the radio, and his stand-up is just fantastic. So great fucking guy. Love him.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times. I love that a lot of his punchlines ended with having a coked out in St. Louis, or he had a sandwich thrown at him at this place at the Funny Bone. So he's had some fun here. Probably too much fun than he probably will be wanting to talk about in the future. But Yeah, we love Artie. Were you around for Scott the Engineer's exit? I think that was after you, right?
No, that was before me. Scott actually in the last few months sat right next to me in the office with myself and Shuli and who else was in there? Mike Fox. So, huge office. He sat next to me, and Scott's one of the people in life outside the Stern Show or whatever. He's just one of the people in life I feel bad for Scott, and I used to tell Scott this all the time in person, so this is no secret.
Does he want to hear that? Because that's what he's been said. They've been calling him a loser for all these years, and you're like, I feel so bad for you. It's funny, but
I did. I told him, I feel bad for you, brother. And I said, Scott, the only thing I want for you is you to have 5 minutes of enjoyment in your entire life, because he really is that down on himself. And I think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get down and people tell you you're a loser, and you get into a downward spiral, and it gets in your head. And I tried with him. I told him, like, Scott, I love you. You're a great guy. Like, don't let any of this stuff get you down. And, he's somebody that's run into some bad luck and things like that. But I love Scott. I really, really do. I think he's a great guy.
What was that day like when he's not sitting there the next day? I mean, that just seemed like the weirdest one of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just weird to me because I had no idea what happened. I hadn't even heard. I was like, what's going on? They're like, you didn't hear? I was, no. So it was just weird. It was weird, and it just made me incredibly sad because I love Scott, and he'd been with the show for so long, and I just think that he should have been able to retire or whatever he wanted to do in his time, because he really did put his heart into the show for a lot of years.
Well, I hope one day he wants to talk here, because I think he would be fun to talk to and hear his story. But I'm not sure he's not sure he's going to be telling it soon. So we're wrapping up a little bit. Again, I appreciate your time. I guess I have to ask, because it's out, the jackhammer. That wasn't a big thing, right? That had nothing to do with you leaving the Stern Show. And everybody reads it, they go,
no. Here's the deal. My wife and I are swingers. That's what goes on in the swinging community. Like, this kind of stuff goes on all the time. Like, this past weekend, we were down in Fort Myers with a huge group of people at a huge Halloween orgy. Like, we are swingers. That's what goes on. None of that stuff upsets me. Like, it really doesn't. Like, he's actually a pretty friendly guy. I went out to LA. I had a couple of chicks, and my wife was friendly with one of the chicks that I was with out in LA. That's what goes on in swinging. We're easygoing. That's just something that I'm into isn't going to upset me. That's, what I'm saying? The people that say that are projecting their feelings onto me. That's not my feelings. My wife will tell you I'm not a jealous person at all. In fact, all these situations that we get into really are a turn on for me. It's not me getting upset. So the jackhammer had nothing to do with us leaving. Nothing whatsoever. He's a nice enough guy, but swinging lifestyle, you meet, it's a dime a dozen, man. You meet lots of people. So, but that's what we are. That's what we do. We swing. Big deal.
You mentioned Scott the Engineer. I believe he had an episode of swinging way, way, way back in the day. Did you guys have a chance to discuss?
He came up to me after the first time I went on the air and talked about it. He came up to me and he goes, "Hello, my fellow swinger." Yeah, he used to do the key parties, where they would go, you put your hotel room key in different bowls and just be random. Now that I don't know if I could actually do. I need some time, and this is going to sound very chickish of me. I need some time to talk to the woman and kind of get worked up and into it. And if a woman's not cool and doesn't have a cool personality, I'm out. And that's what I've learned that I like. I need to, this past Halloween, the party was at a regular bar from 8 to 12, so you couldn't really do anything. So it gave me a chance to mingle and socialize with everybody. And then when it was time to get back to the house and get down to business, I was comfortable with everybody. So yeah, it's a fun lifestyle, but people that aren't in it have some really serious misperceptions about what goes on and the jealousy of the guys in it. Because the guys in the swingers lifestyle are not jealous. Trust me, we have these conversations amongst ourselves all the time.
It's interesting. We have an area in St. Louis, a little west, that is known for this. Pineapples out on this front porch, so we know about it here. I don't know if I'd be able to partake. I know my wife would not be interested in that. But, the Twitch show, though, again, you're on Twitch, and just tell me a little bit about what you do. You do this every night. Tell us how we can find you and just kind of what you're doing there. And it's obviously seemingly working so far for you.
Oh, it is. It's working very well. So the Twitch channel is at Brent Hatley. on Twitch, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time every night. We are on, my wife and I, and it's a show that is politics free. So if you're looking for politics free, we got you covered. It's politics free. We talk about music. We talk about sex. We talk about sometimes the law. We get into fun discussions. And if people are chatters that have questions for us about Bubba or Stern or something that we did, we're happy to answer that. We take all the questions and we address everything. So and it's a fun discussion. Like the regular people that we have in chat are fun to chat with too, because there's some smart asses that like to give me a hard time and talk about how hot my wife looks.
Caitlin is very, very, very warm, I will say. As you do post pictures around Twitter, and I get very happy about that. So I look forward to. I'm going to watch. I'm going to get on Twitch. I'm not a gamer, but I need to get on Twitch and find this stuff out. But I really, your career and your just kind of your background so cool. I do want to. I don't know if you talk about your time in the Gulf War at all. If you do have any. If you have stories, I don't know if I want to hear stories, but I want to say thank you for being a part of our military. What does it mean to you now, seeing how we'll talk politics for 1 second. I mean, tell me a little bit about that experience and tell me a little bit about what you think of what's going on in the world right now. Just give me a...
Quickly, it was a great experience in the Marine Corps. It was an honor and a privilege to serve this country. We have a great country, and it was an honor, as I said, and a privilege to serve this country in the Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps did things for me, not just the Gulf War, just the whole experience. They did things for me and gave me intangibles in life that I'll never have. As far as what's going on in the world today, I think we need to bring all of our troops home. I really do. These guys, we've asked them to do too much, these men and women. We've asked them to do too much, and I think it's time for them to come home now. It's time to end up our foreign occupations of other countries. I don't think that that's doing you or me or any Americans any good. I think diplomacy goes much further than the bullet. But again, when you're called to serve, you, just like all of us did, you obey your orders and you go out there and you serve this country. So I'm thankful for everybody, every military person, firefighter, police officer that serves this country, and EMS and first responders. They do an amazing job, and a big thanks to everyone. And everybody's service is much appreciated.
All right, so I can't leave on that. Let's leave on something a little more light. Your favorite moment working on the Stern Show. Give us, when you think back, or even your career, what was your favorite just sort of radio moment from those years? But I like the Stern time. I mean, is there a
Stern time?
Yeah, I mean, is there one? I mean, it's funny because if you go to YouTube and look you up, it's basically every story is from your weekends. So that seems like you became a character just for that. But is there a favorite time, maybe in the back office with Will and Jason or one of those guys?
So my favorite time on the air was the time that, and I love Ronnie, the limo driver, just so everybody knows, I love him, and I was just busting his balls this time. So Howard had told us no more doing events like the Stars of Satellite Radio. It really bothers him. So Ronnie one morning, so there's a partition between us. It's not a wall, and he's talking loud. Like you hear him on the air talking loud to Sal about how he can get them booked for the Stars of Satellite Radio again. And Howard had said, like, anybody does anything like this again, you're fired. So I went to Sal. I was like, hey, is it okay if I go ahead and bring this up with Howard? Because I took notes on it. I was like, is it okay if I go ahead and bring this up with Howard? And he's like, Sal's like, absolutely. Like, I'm not doing this. I don't want to lose my job. So we waited one day, and then I brought it up, and Ronnie exploded, and that turned into like an hour of me versus Ronnie going back and forth. And I know he was mad, and I almost felt bad for him, but I just couldn't help myself that day. I had that little mischievous gremlin in me, and I wanted to go in there and do some great content. And that bit probably was my favorite because it got everybody riled up. It was like Team Ronnie, Team Brent, and like it got really everybody riled up, and it was lighthearted and fun. It wasn't going to get. Nobody was hurt by it.
I'll say, of all the puppets that have been created on the show, I mean, Ronnie is a real-life puppet. Like, the puppet's not even as funny as Ronnie is. It's that he's that always insane. It's funny to me. And so, yeah, I would assume it was fun working with Ronnie. I really appreciate your time. Anything that we missed? Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, thanks for having me, and thanks for having a real discussion about radio. And it's very interesting to have this type of discussion instead of some of the acrimonious ones that I have to have sometimes. But this was great, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
And I always say this to everybody that I send these out to. Hey, can I do this? Not here to throw bombs. I'm interested in that minutia of how it works. I think people who are in radio are interested on how it works. So you've done a great job, and it's been an interesting chat, and I appreciate you doing it with me today. So Brett, have a great day. Appreciate your time. Thank you
Thanks
for
so
watching.
much.
We'll see you next time. Again, Masses is the sponsor, stlmasses.com. Go there, get the menus on the website, look at the directions if you're coming through St. Louis. The Winghaven location, Winghaven, might be some swingers. That's what they say. So
Yeah.
check it out, Masses Restaurants, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.